Hello and welcome to another edition of the Startup Show brought to you by Inc. Authority. I'm your host, Trevor Rowley. Today we're going to talk about a topic that some people love and some people hate, but it's a reality in the business world. There's always going to be taxes that have to be paid. And to walk us through the process, I want to welcome again to the program, Joe Palmer, a business advisor at Inc. Authority. Hello, Joe.
How's it going?
Fantastic. So, Joe, over the course of your career working with entrepreneurs around the country, I'm sure many times the question of taxes has come up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it inspires fear.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some solutions to minimizing the tax impact that one has as they conduct their business. But before we talk about that, let's talk about this process of what one should be doing to prepare for tax season to begin with. Because I know a lot of the new business owners at Inc. Authority are coming in. It's their first time that they've operated a business. They're not exactly sure what they should be doing. They've not gone through their first tax cycle yet. So what would a brand new entrepreneur, if I just set up an LLC a year ago and it's getting close to time for me to file my taxes for the first time, what are the things that I should be doing to get ready for that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is probably by far, not probably, it is by far the most commonly asked question and the most common subject that we would find when we're setting up LLCs for people. So everybody wants to know the answer to what do I do with my taxes? Yeah. So my biggest piece of advice that I give my clients is I strongly urge them to seek out a certified tax preparer. That could be a CPA, could be an accountant, it could just be a tax preparer. It doesn't have to be, any official title for that, but someone that is familiar with self-employed business tax returns. Yeah. And my advice to the client is to be keeping track of all of their income, preferably with having a business bank account set up, run all your income through there. And also keeping track of all the expenses. So any amount of funds or money that you're spending on your business so that we know what to write off and what to claim as income.
Yeah. It seems fundamental, right? But for a lot of business owners that are doing it for the first time, they kind of look like, well, it's one pocket or the other. It's me. I'm running the business and I have my life in the business. And so they don't necessarily always keep good track of whether it's personal money or business money. But it's absolutely vital when it comes to tax time, particularly pertaining to the businesses, that they keep all of that separate. And so having that business bank account separate from the personal bank account, that's one piece of it. And then keeping track of income and expenses, doing a little bit of bookkeeping for that business is going to go a long way to helping you be ready at tax time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I've known some customers that they used what I call the Mr. Magoo method of keeping track of their receipts, which is like, I just put it in a big box, right? And then at tax time, I go deliver it to a tax preparer and I'm like, here you go. I'm kind of like the blind guy, but I just give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the best way to prepare for taxes. No. Better that you have receipts than no receipts.
Yeah. Yep.
But tell me a little bit about the types of tax preparers, because there are historical tax preparers and that just kind of look back at what you did and tell you how much you owed. And then there are some tax planners who can help you plan and prepare to minimize taxes. How do you identify one type of provider over another when choosing that important tax preparer?
I think it's important to interview people, much like you would do with anything else. I think it's maybe important to sit with at least or talk to at least more than one person. There is, like when I owned my business, I had a tax preparer, and still use him to this day, that was considered a forensic tax preparer. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. But the whole thing was that he does a deep dive into the elements of taxation and dealing with the IRS that goes a little bit beyond what most people know. And through that process, I was able to find someone that not only took care of what I had done the previous year, but set me up on a path of success for that upcoming year and years after. And so I think a good tax preparer in that vein would be someone that is setting you up for success now and for in the future. And so they're going to have they should have a lot of steps and a lot of guidance, preparing quarterly forms for you. Right? Maybe suggesting a way or a method for you to keep track of your expenses. There's a lot of good apps now, a lot of really cool ways that you can use the technology that we have just in our pocket every day to keep track of your business expenses. Yeah. When I owned my business, I was a little bit above the Mr. Magoo method, but I tell my clients I had basically an accordion folder that was labeled, and I would put my different expense receipts in there, and then at the end of the year I would add them up. Thinking about how things are now, and you have the ability to use an app on your phone that can literally scan and hold all of that data and information and all that paperwork just in your pocket is pretty amazing. And I think a good tax preparer would turn you on to tools of that nature and be able to suggest maybe some of the better ones that they've seen before.
That's really great advice, because in the process of interviewing this tax preparer, you're going to find out, how much they've dealt with business owners before, what level of sophistication they might have, and tools that they can provide to the business owner to make it easier for them to provide the tax preparer with what he or she needs to make sure that they can effectively and efficiently process the tax return.
Absolutely.
So really, really good information. I know the temptation's always there, to just say, hey, look, I'm just going to buy an off-the-shelf, tax software and kind of do my own taxes. And I imagine if somebody, considers themselves or is expert in that, they can go down that route. But for a lot of business owners, it's the first time. Business taxes are going to be a little bit different than personal taxes. And I think it certainly pays for itself to use a professional tax preparer to get your business taxes done. So you've interviewed a tax preparer, you have somebody that's going to be doing your taxes, you've been given some tools, some apps, some counsel advice, how to hold on to receipts, what to prepare, what to give to them. Hopefully you're doing some basic bookkeeping, profit and loss statements, and so on and so forth. You've got your bank statements that you're keeping that you're going to want to provide to the tax preparer. Let's talk now a little bit about tax elections, because as a brand new business owner, I call Inc. Authority, or I go online at Inc. Authority, I get a brand new LLC set up. My next step typically is to apply for my EIN number. And one of the great things about doing business with Inc. Authority is Inc. Authority will do that on behalf of the customer. But Inc. Authority is going to ask the customer a couple of questions about what type of tax election you want to make, because you're making that tax election at the time you're applying for your EIN, Employer Identification Number. And so as an LLC, what are the choices I have for tax election, and what is it going to mean to me?
Yeah. So, and I think the great thing about an LLC, and when clients will ask me about LLC versus corporation, a lot of times for the small business owner, my suggestion will be towards the LLC because of your ability to have flexible taxation. And what that means is that you can start your LLC in one set of circumstances for your tax election, and then you can actually change that if necessary at a different time down the road. Most commonly, that looks like setting up an S Corp. I think that's the most common election we see. And most people don't know that their LLC can actually be taxed as an S Corp. And so that's a good option. And I do believe you can even be taxed as a C Corp as an LLC. It's not super common, but it's one of the options you can do, in addition to just being like a sole member LLC and just being taxed in that fashion too, right? As just a self-employed business owner. Yeah. And so those are the different elections that you can navigate in and out of. And again, having that flexibility, I think, is really important, because some business owners, they're not really sure where this business is going to go. And where a one tax election may have been good for you this year, you may put yourself into a different tax bracket, or in an area where the percentage that you're paying on taxes becomes more. And so in that case, and again, going back to the idea with the CPA, that's where it's really important to seek their guidance, because they're one of the people that can tell you, hey, now that we're here, it might be a good idea to get into that S Corp tax election. Yeah. So not all businesses will start there, but many will end up there.
Yeah. I think you hit on one of the points of the beauty of an LLC, which is that you have so many different choices that you can make. And at tax time, that tax election is also one of those choices. When you apply for that EIN number, you're telling the IRS how you want to be treated for taxes going forward. Can you change the election? Yeah, there are processes and procedures in place that would allow you to change those down the road. But that initial tax election is important. And as you mentioned, there's a number of choices. If I'm a single member LLC, the member being the owner, so I'm the only owner of that LLC, one of the options I have is to be what's called disregarded as a taxpayer, basically as a separate entity, as a taxpayer.
Yep.
It simply means I'm going to be treated as if I were a sole proprietor for tax purposes. I don't lose the limited liability protection. I still have that from the LLC. But for tax purposes, I'll be treated as if I were a sole proprietor. Basically, there's a little bit more to it than this. But basically, it means I have fewer deductions available to me if I choose that election. But it's very, very simple. And in fact, for somebody who might be running like a very small eBay store that maybe does just a handful of thousands of dollars in sales in a year, it might be a perfect election for a single member LLC to do that because it's a very simple, uncomplicated tax return, right? Now, if I have a partner, if it's you and I doing business and we still have a very small business, we might choose partnership style taxation where we're still going to have our own individual tax obligation based on the income and our percentage of ownership, but it's still going to be a simple return. And then as you so correctly said, I can choose to be taxed as if I were an S Corp if I wanted to, which will give me the advantage of deductions. I can choose to be taxed as a C Corp if I want to. And of course, that in contrast to if I were a corporation to begin with, I would have those two choices, S Corp or C Corp election. S Corp meaning a single layer of tax paying, meaning that the profit or loss reports to the owners who pay the taxes for it on their personal return, versus a C Corp where it's actually a separate taxpayer, the entity. There's a business tax return before there's a personal tax return, commonly referred to as double taxation. Now, does that necessarily mean it's always a bad thing, double taxation?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, and what situations might that work or not work?
I think that where you would see that more often than not, in my experience, is maybe larger businesses, larger corporations. It's going to make a little bit more sense for them. But I think they're going to be putting themselves into an area of taxation to where that particular election would make sense for them.
Yeah.
Because they have an income that dictates that it would be advantageous for them to make the C Corp election. Yeah. But in my experience, typically we're going to see that with a higher amount of revenue for the business owner.
Yeah. And somebody who chooses a C corporation election can retain some income in the business, et cetera. So there are reasons to do that. Now, if a brand new business owner is watching this program and they're hearing this term, they might be thinking like, holy cow, this sounds like it can be pretty complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated.
No.
And again, one of the nice things we do at Inc. Authority is every person who starts their corporation or their LLC with us, they get a free 1-hour tax consultation with a tax professional who can kind of take them through all of the ins and outs of the different tax elections and how they might apply to the individual so that person can make a really good choice. So tell us about that a little bit, about that process and how advantageous that is, particularly to a new business owner, to have that consultation that Inc. Authority provides.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's paramount. And as I stated earlier, I would say the question that I get more often than any other question is tax questions, tax-related questions. There's a general built-in fear with the unknown, especially as it pertains to the IRS, because the IRS is not a place that you want to travel into the unknown for, you know. And so by us having business advisors that are assigned to each one of our clients, and that's my role. And then on top of that, having a resource and an outlet for certified tax preparers, a company that does this. That's all they do is help people with their taxes, giving our clients a 1-hour consultation. And even having the ability, if they like that company and they like the person they're working with, to be able to hire them on as their tax preparer as well. But I think that is probably one of the more important, if not the most important, service that we provide, strictly based on the number of requests that we get for that question. So the fact that we have an outlet, multiple resources for our clients, I think really helps them feel better about going into the process, because they can go into it knowing, hey, I don't know all of this stuff, but I'm working with a company that has over 30 years of experience in this space, that is also linked up with another great company that knows taxes inside and out.
Yeah. You know, it's one of the things that really makes Inc. Authority different from other business formation companies is this combination of a partnership with a national tax and accounting firm who can answer these questions and even do the tax work if somebody wants them to do the tax work for them, but in combination with you and our other business advisors who are seasoned business professionals yourselves, who can kind of walk these new customers through this process, right? Because you've been there and you know how to avoid, you know, the pitfalls and the dangers. You know, the tips that you can give to people to make the process a little bit easier, and you know how to connect them with the tax professional. It makes a big difference in how much money ends up in that new business owner's pocket versus being unnecessarily spent or unclaimed as a deduction elsewhere. Absolutely essential. So thank you for all the work you do with entrepreneurs around the country and helping them become successful, because ultimately that's what we want. That's our goal at Inc. Authority, is to help business owners around the country be successful.
Absolutely.
Which is why it's not just a transaction for us. Hey, we'll get your LLC set up. We will get your LLC set up, but we're going to be here with you, provide you a team that can answer your questions, hold your hand, guide you, direct you, put you together with other professionals who can take care of other things such as your taxes, so that all of that's done. It's a one-stop shop, one phone call to Inc. Authority, and it takes care of it all.
Yeah.
So appreciate you being here with us today, Joe, teaching us a little bit about taxes and tax elections and giving us some tips on some things to prepare for and to look out for. If you have any more questions about what you need to do to get ready for your taxes, tax season is coming up, give us a call at Inc. Authority and ask for one of our business advisors. They'll be happy to walk you through the process. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our future content. Appreciate you joining us today. We'll see you next time.